Okay, so here we are live once again with another Mcfarlane DC Multiverse unboxing, and this is Jonah Hicks and the General. And this says McFarlane Collector Edition. You can see it's a two-pack. The other figure in the pack is a horse. So I don't know if I would say this is overpriced because it's a pretty good deal, I think, for a figure, a human figure, and a horse figure. And what are these strange metallic objects that are in there? Look at that. He's got guns. When have we ever seen a McFarlane DC Multiverse figure with guns? Never. That's when even poor old Sergeant Rock has to fight the Nazis with a shovel. But Jonah Hicks, he's got his 6 shooters and a shotgun rifle, I think, whatever it is. And he's got his cutlass and his Bowie knife and an axe and all kind of good stuff. So there's the artwork on the back. We got Jonah Hicks on his horse, the General, and since this seems to indicate some New 52 elements, this was actually a good series that was in the New 52. Jonah Hicks went to Gotham City and ran afoul of the Court of Owls. Or should I say they ran afoul of him? Let's go ahead and open her up. Oh, there's still some more tape on the sides here. I'm sorry about this accent. I can't help it. I'm in that Jonah Hicks kind of mood. So let's go ahead and open this puppy up. Here we go. And inside we see the typical insert that we get from one of these DC Multiverse figures with lots of comic book art. Lots of classic comic book art by the likes of Neil Adams and Sheldon Moldoff and Kurt Swan and Dick Giordano and Gil Kane. Got some Todd McFarlane on there as well. You know, Todd McFarlane couldn't resist putting some of his own artwork on here. Got some Fred Ray. Got some Joe Shuster going all the way back to Action Comics #1. That's where that loco alien feller Superman first appeared. Got Detective Comics #27. That Ombre the Batman. It's hard to get the bag open. I'm trying to get the bag open without damaging the trading card too much. There we go. And there's our trading card. Same piece of artwork we saw on the front. Same kind of border design that we get on these collector edition figures from time to time. And here's what the back looks like. Nice foil printing. Says Jonah Hicks, All-Star Western. Data file. Real name, Jonah Woodson Hicks. Jonah Hicks's life was blighted by misfortune. Born in 1839, the son of a brutal drunk, Jonah was abandoned by his mother and sold to Apaches by his father. Raised as a Native American until a jealous rival, No Tante, betrayed him, Hicks returned to the white world. Despite hating slavery, he fought for the Confederacy of the Civil War. Afterwards, he sought out childhood sweetheart White Fawn and killed No Tante. His punishment was scarification with a burning tomahawk. As a bounty hunter, Hicks was hired by Amadeus Arkham to catch the serial killer, the Gotham Butcher. This uncovered 2 secret societies, the Court of Owls and devotees of the Crime Bible. Exploiting the rivalry between the 2 groups, Hicks and Arkham defeated the Crime Bible's acolytes, forging a friendship with Alan Wayne, who funded the first Arkham Asylum. Well, how about that? All right, and then also, in addition to that, we have the figure stand. Now, despite my having the difficulty getting the figure stand out of the bag, I do like having the bags on here rather than the bubbles. I feel like that works a little bit better. Here we go. Here is our figure stand, and we can see that it is a typical Mcfarlane Collector Edition figure stand, a matte black figure stand with a silver DC logo embossed onto it. Go ahead and put the insert back into the box, and then we can start dealing with the contents therein. All right, so we got 2 plastic trays, which are keeping the figure and all the accoutrements in there. It does not seem to be taped on, so I can get that off rather easily. Or so I thought. It's actually held on by the rubber tabs. And you know I hate these confounded rubber tabs. They really get under my skin. There we go. Got a cut. Come right off after that. Now the General is molded in a dark brown plastic, as we can see. And he, I'm not sure if this is the same mold as the horse from The Dark Knight. You know, the Dark Knight Returns horse that you built when you bought Batman and Superman and Carrie Kelly and the Joker. That guy's crazy as a long-eared coyote. All right, so we got all these accessories here for Jonah Hex. We got the gun belt to put his 6 shooters into. A little loop there for his saber. We got these 6 shooters themselves. Let's go ahead and pull them out of there. Got 2 of those. They appear to be identical. We have this Bowie knife with an ivory handle. And it is indeed pronounced Bowie, not Bowie. Bowie is David, the rock singer. And he did name himself after the Bowie knife, but he pronounces it Bowie, whereas Jim Bowie pronounced it Bowie. And I'm not going to argue with the guy who has a knife this size. So we're going to say Bowie. I'm going to set that aside. Let's get to the rest of these accessories. And we do have this hatchet, or perhaps it's a tomahawk, maybe a burning tomahawk if you applied it to some fire and then applied it to a gentleman's face, and he would not look quite as handsome afterwards. In fact, he would look like the gentleman in this package, which we will get to shortly. So I read a lot of these Jonah Hex comics as a kid, and the main one I remember is Secret Origins, where they went into, Secret Origins was a series that went into the origins of several of DC's famous characters, and Jonah Hex was among them. And that's where I first learned of the origins of Jonah Hex. And it also delved into the future of Jonah Hex, where he literally goes into the future. And eventually he does make his way back to the past. He is cowardly shot in the back by a no good, jackanapes, and his body winds up being taxidermied and stuffed and put into a Western show, where it eventually becomes an attraction at a Western themed amusement park. A very grim end for our hero, but fitting to the character. So here is the rifle. It is a pump action rifle, very cool looking, very Western. Let's get a closer look at these 6 shooters I was talking about. They are some huge hand cannons. Let me tell you what, we have this cavalry saber, which is a little bent from being in the package, but I assure you, I can straighten this up with a hairdryer. It won't be any problem. And then a closer look at the Bowie knife. We already had a look at that, but here's another. And then last but not least, Jonah Hex himself. And that is a face only a mother could love, except for she abandoned him. So I guess maybe not even that. So, and of course that happened later. He does have a soft goods coat, which appears to be made out of a type of spandex, which I don't believe that spandex existed in the 1800s. So this is historically inaccurate. It probably would have been better if they'd have used a more plush type material, like a flannel, or something like they used in the old Star Wars figures. If you remember Bib Fortuna, they could have made his coat out of the same stuff as Bib Fortuna. I think that would have been a better choice. At least it would have seemed more historically accurate. Let's have a look at this horse. Now, it like as I said, it does not appear to be the same horse. I don't believe it is that came with the Dark Knight Batman. At least if it is, it does have some new parts added to it. He does have a ball jointed tail, but it does seem to be a little loose. Unless you bend it up like this, then it kind of sticks up. But down in this position, of course, I guess if you want to have it all the way down, you want to have it pointed down anyway. So that's not really too harmful. A nice detailed saddle made of a very soft rubber. Molded underneath, we see that there is a saddle blanket. We got a bedroll up here. There's the pommel of the saddle. We have the reins of the saddle, which here are one solid rein, actually. Coming down to the bridle, which is it seems to be a separate piece that's glued on. So you may be able to remove it, but I don't know if you would want to. But the general can look down about that far. He can look up about that far. At the base of the neck, he can look up about that far and look down about that far. Kind of tilt his head quizzically from side to side and turn his head somewhat left and right, but not too much. You don't want a horse to turn his head around all the way anyway. That is very bad for the horse. So the general can kick up about this far. His joints are very tight. His front leg can do that, and he's got articulation at the ankles. It seems to rotate all the way around. Back legs can kick back about that far and kick forward about that far. They don't seem to move back and forth very much, but I don't think horses can do that anyway, so that's just as well. And his back leg can kick forward about that far and kick back about that far. And he does have the cool ball-jointed Mcfarlane ankles, even though he is a horse. So you can get some good positioning out of this boy. He does not appear to have horseshoes. This horse is not shod. Jonah Hex, you are not taking very good care of your horse. You need to get your horse shod. Anyway, lots of good details here. A little saddlebag there, a little canteen. This is probably where Jonah Hex keeps his victuals. Beef jerky and some beans and stuff that he can cook while he's out on the trail, just in case he can't, find a rabbit or a squirrel or anything like that to chow down on. It's good to have some victuals if you're stranded out in the desert, and we know that this has happened to our man Jonah Hex several times. So now that we've had a look at the horse, let's move on to Jonah Hex himself. Now, as I pointed out, he does have that disfigured face that our hero has in the comic book, and it is painted with some pink paint, and it looks like it's kind of dry brushed on there. There is some good detail in both the sculpting and the paint. His teeth are a very glossy off-white color, not quite gray, but certainly not white. This is not a man who has good dental hygiene, so that makes sense. You know that Jonah Hex ain't out there with an Oral-B and some Crest. He ain't got that stuff. He might go to see the dentist from time to time, but chances are that dentist is a drunk and a card player and looks like Val Kilmer. So the hat is not removable. It is molded onto the head. Actually, it is a separate piece that is glued onto the head, excuse me. And he does have a bit of some facial hair where it looks like he hasn't shaved in a few days. So what I look like if I haven't shaved after 5 minutes, because I haven't shaved in over a year, not like the most of the beard. It's been several years since I've been without my beard. So anyway, let's have a look at the articulation. First, I want to remove this coat because I want the articulation to be unencumbered. And of course, Jonah Hex does not always wear a duster in the comic books, so it will still be comic book accurate even without the duster. And while I do nitpick about the choice of material used in this duster, it is nice that they gave us some soft goods for this character. I want to say that is impressive. So we got another loop on here. So one of the loops on the belt will be for the knife, and one of the One of the loops will be for the sword, and it looks like the sword's kind of a tight fit in the loop on the gun belt, but it does fit. And the blade of the knife is actually much thicker, so I'm assuming that that is going to go into the belt that is actually on the figure. And it looks like we can fit the 6 shooters in here as well. Not exactly holsters, but there are little loops there. I'm wondering if the holsters will fit into the. Probably not. It looks like that would be a very tight fit. But you might not even have to put the gun belt on there if you don't want to. It's a matter of choice. It's a matter of choice as to whether you want to put the gun belt on there or just have the guns in loops on this belt. So now let's talk about his articulation. And Jonah Hex can look up about that far. He can look down about that far. He's looking down at a man he just shot. So, yeah. Tilts his head kind of quizzically from side to side. If somebody says something stupid to Jonah Hex, that's the look he gives him right before he shoots him. So, yeah, there we go. There is this high collar here, but it does not seem to interfere with his neck articulation at all. It does seem like you can still get some good neck articulation out of Jonah Hex. His head does turn all the way around. Arms rotate all the way around at the shoulders, and they move up about that far. He does have the butterfly joints, so arms can move back about that far and forward about that far. And dang if I didn't drop his 6-shooter. We're going to set those aside for now. We don't really need to have those in the belt now, do we? Let's pull out the knife, too. We're going to want to see all these accessories in his hands in a little bit. Anyway, Jonah Hex has double-jointed elbows. So he can even reach up and scratch his face if he's got a little bit of an itch. But I suggest you don't do that, Jonah. It's never going to heal if you don't stop picking. All right. So he does have a bicep swivel, so he rotates all the way around at the bicep. The wrists have the cool Mcfarlane ball joints, and for some reason, they decided to make the ball joints in the same shade of gray as his Confederate uniform. So they don't match up with the skin on his hands. That is an odd choice, I tell you what. But he does have 2 hands that both look like they are made to hold 6-shooters. So he should look pretty cool when we get that 6-shooter in his hands. Jonah Hex has the cool type of Mcfarlane torso articulation, so we can be moving his torso around any which way we want. He does rotate all the way around at the waist as well, also rotates at the mid-torso. These Mcfarlane torso joints, I do declare I love them. All right. Jonah Hex can kick up about that far, which is not very far. His legs are somewhat encumbered not only by the rubber trunk piece that we are used to on these Mcfarlane figures, which makes a lot more sense on a superhero who is actually wearing trunks on the outside, such as Superman, rather than Jonah Hex, who's wearing jeans. He's got his dungarees on. He's wearing his Levi's. Levi's are a brand new type of jean that was just invented a few years back. So Jonah Hex has been wearing those for a few years. The jeans do have a very nice texture to them. They definitely put some effort into making that look like denim. He does have a thigh cut, so you can rotate his leg all the way to the thigh. This will be very helpful when it comes to getting Jonah Hex on the horse. So Jonah Hex has double jointed knees, which again will come in handy. That's about as far as the knee bends backwards. And despite him having these cool, what looks like the bastard child of a buccaneer boot and a cowboy boot, it does not have a boot cut. And this is a separate piece of plastic, so they could have easily added a boot cut, but for some reason they chose not to. Why did you choose not to? You already make it into 2 pieces of plastic. You might as well leave an articulation there. But the good news is, the good people at Mcfarlane Toys, they already be giving him this great ankle articulation with the ball jointed ankle. So you can really move this ankle around any which way you want to. It ain't going to encumber his leg articulation whatsoever. So, A fairly well articulated figure. Could be better articulated, but considering all of his accoutrements, I think well articulated enough. So let's go ahead and have a look at this gun belt. Now, this is a removable gun belt. It's already on the figure. So you can really, either with the cross gun belts or the single gun belt, you can choose whichever one of these you want to put on. But I think, as I pointed out before, that if you want to have the cavalry saber, this one will work better because it fits in a little more tightly. And it would probably fit a little too loosely into the crossed gun belt. On the other hand, if you would rather display Jonah Hex with your Bowie knives, that would probably be the preferred belt to use. So there we go. I finally got it to peg in properly. So there we go with the cavalry saber. Let's go ahead and put that in his hand and see what he looks like when he's holding it. Pretty cool. I think even by this point, the cavalry saber was already starting to become more of a decorative weapon. They weren't doing quite as much sword fighting by the Civil War, I believe. I do declare. So then we have the rifle. So let's go ahead and put that in his hot little hands. See what he looks like when he's holding that rifle. I'm having a little bit of a hard time because his fingers are made out of a more rigid plastic than the rifle itself. Tighter than a nun on Sunday. There we go. And we can fit it in here. Get him into a two-handed grip with that rifle. These hands are ridiculously rigid. I might have a simpler time sliding it into his hand that way than trying to get in the other way. He does look very badass holding that rifle, don't he? All right, but that's not all as far as the accessories go. And by the way, there is a rifle sheath on the general, so we can keep the rifle on the general when we don't have Jonah Hex wielding it. Fits in there rather snugly. I like the way that fits. And last but not least, let's see Jonah Hex with his, well, we got the hatchet. Let's go ahead and put the hatchet in his hand. Oh, and we should probably have a look at him holding the Bowie knife also. So there he is with the hatchet, very cool. And the Bowie knife. I will tell you something right now. You do not want to be looking up and seeing that standing over you. Because if you look up and you see that standing over you, he's about to scalp you. He's a bad man, Jonah Hex. Don't want to mess with Jonah Hex. All right, so let's get this 6-shooter into his hand. And I put it in at the narrowest part of the handle of the gun, the pistol grip. And since the guns are a softer plastic, when I go and I put the gun into his hand, you can see that the trigger guard is actually bent a little bit. I'm gonna try to see if I can move that a little bit further. It's just gonna bend it up somewhat. That's just gonna happen. So a lot of good accessories with this guy. I gotta imagine that the 6-shooters would be the ones I would most often display him with, though. Here we are. Now there is a chase version of this figure, which of course I did not acquire. They sent me the standard version, but the chase version, the general is depicted as a white horse, and Jonah Hex is depicted as wearing an all light blue outfit. So I believe that is supposed to be an unauthorized homage to the Lone Ranger. The Lone Ranger being another one of my favorite Western characters. I keep switching accents. Sometimes I'm more of a southern gentleman. Sometimes I'm a little bit more of a varmint, but whatever. It don't matter. Oh, it's stupid that I'm talking like this anyway. All right, so let's go ahead and have a look at him on the horse. We're going to go back to that accent for a little bit. I'm just doing what comes natural. So there's the 6 shooters in the gun belt. And we can see Jonah Hex on the general. He only come with 1 figure stand, so you can really only put 1 figure on the figure stand, but the general ain't got peg holes in his feet anyway. So you're just gonna have to balance him proper, is all. All right, so here we go. Get him into a saddle riding position. Get them feet pointed forward so I can get him into them stirrups. All right, so here we go. What would a cowboy be without a horse? What would a Western hero or anti-hero be without his faithful steed? So there we go. We can put those reins in his hands. And try to bend his legs down a little bit more. See if I can get him in the saddle as best as possible. And we'll get those reins into his hands. I'm just going to put 1 rein into his hand because I think what I'm going to do is Jonah Hex is going to pull one of them side arms, and that is going to be how I'm going to display him. Get that gun into his hand. That's it, nice and deep like. And then the rein fell out of his hand. There we go. Out to collect a bounty. So that's pretty much it for Jonah Hex. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, make sure you kindly leave a like and subscribe and all that fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this character and my horrible accent. Let me know what you think about this figure. You know, the main reason I was excited about this figure is he came with guns. And oftentimes these Mcfarlane figures don't come with guns. But I feel like Jonah Hex is one that if he hadn't come with a gun, there wouldn't have been no point to buying him. So I definitely wanted to support that. So I did support that. Thankfully, I was able to do the PayPal thing where you're paying for. So that's how I was able to afford to buy this guy, because otherwise he's a little on the pricey side. But as it is, I was able to afford him just fine. But that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. We will see you next time. Bye.